My friend weaponized my childhood trauma, then created a fake account to destroy my reputation, and finally falsely accused my boyfriend and tried to have him framed. So we turned the tables on her and let her dig her own grave. A few weeks ago, my friend called me out for being a kitty fiddler. My friend Tasha has always been a little unhinged. One time when we were on a walk, a cute guy smiled at me and she literally started barking like a dog and yelling "predator" over and over until he practically ran away. Another time, I visited her on her first day of work in the local Starbucks when a man in front of me said "good morning" to her. "Don't harass me with your eye contact," she yelled before spitting into his coffee. And don't get me wrong, it was always super embarrassing. But overall, I thought Tasha was a good person who would eventually grow out of it. Spoiler alert, she never did. A few weeks later, her parents cut her off after she cut the brakes of her 17-year-old brother's car, all over finding a rubber in his room. Because to her, that meant he was taking advantage of young and impressionable girls. And since they were her only source of income, she now had nothing, because she was physically unable to hold a job too. So I did what any rational 18-year-old would do. I offered to pay her tuition for her, with the permission of my overly generous parents. I announced this to her over dinner. She didn't hug me, smile, or even say thanks. "That's cool," was all she said, before continuing to eat her dinner. I felt a little hurt because it took a lot of convincing from my parents, but I didn't want to make her feel like my love was conditional, so I just told her it was no problem. Luckily, when I went home that night, I got a text. It was her. I find it hard to express gratitude sometimes, but I really appreciate it. That made me smile, and that's when I knew Tasha was kind-hearted, just a little misunderstood, and mentally ill. So we continued to be best friends, until 2 months in when I met my boyfriend, Zach. I knew Tasha would insist on meeting him, so I gave him a full debrief on what she was like and how to best interact with her. I knew things were good when we were all hanging out together, and he went from his chatty, friendly self to completely quiet and reserved. The contrast was so obvious I had to stop myself from giggling, but I guess Tasha's wrath is unavoidable, because that's when I took off my jumper. "You are so beautiful," Zach said, with a flirty smile on his face. That's when Tasha narrowed her eyes at him. Zach immediately closed his mouth. He swallowed, face turning red like he'd been caught. "This is what happens when you shave your arms," she said. I raised an eyebrow, because I genuinely didn't know what the F she was talking about. "You know, Lily," she angled her entire body towards me. I didn't want to say anything, but now I have to. "You've been brainwashed by the patriarchy, and now you're supporting kitty fiddlers." Well, this wasn't my first rodeo with Tasha and her antics, so I just smiled and nodded, hoping she would shut up soon. Luckily, she did, and for the rest of the day, neither me or Zach said anything. We just let her do the talking. I was honestly planning on forgetting about her little comment. I was lying beside Zach at 3 a.m. when she called me. "Lily, I need to tell you something." Her voice was shaky, hysterical. I honestly thought someone had died. "The only reason Zach likes you is because you look like a child, and you are 100% to blame for his kitty fiddling behavior, because you shave and refuse to gain weight." She was on speakerphone, and Zach's face twisted in disbelief. "Tasha, I'm really tired. Can we talk about this later?" "The only reason I'm telling you this is because I love you," she interrupted, clearly loving the sound of her own voice. "Please think critically for once. Your boyfriend is a predator and you're a victim." By this point, I was ready to hang up and never speak to her again, but her call was so amusing that I decided to let her continue. "You know why you shave, right? It's because being hairless makes you feel safe. It makes you feel like that moment when you were a child and your neighbor stole your innocence didn't happen. But that's exactly what predators look for." Suddenly, the room was spinning. Zach grabbed my phone, hung up, and immediately held me while I violently cried in his arms. He didn't say anything, but I just knew that he wasn't judging me. When my tears finally ran out, he whispered into my ear that I would be safe with him, and I ended up just falling asleep, drooling in his lap. I didn't know it at the time, but Zach was about to make Tasha pay, and my life was about to change forever. The next morning, I woke up feeling completely drained. Zach had made breakfast and was sitting at the edge of the bed with a tray of pancakes. I tried to smile, but the events of last night came flooding back. Tasha had somehow managed to bring up the one thing I never talked about, the incident with my neighbor when I was 9. I had never told anyone about it, not even my parents. Somehow Tasha knew, and she had used it as a weapon. "We need to talk about last night," Zach said gently, putting the tray down. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak without crying again. "What Tasha said? Is it true? About your neighbor?" I nodded again, tears already forming. Zach took my hand and squeezed it. "I'm so sorry that happened to you. But you know what she said about me isn't true, right? I'm with you because I love you, not because of how you look." "I know," I whispered, and I did know. Zach had always been respectful and kind. The idea that he was some kind of predator was ridiculous. I don't know how she knew about my neighbor. I never told her. I paused, thinking back. Actually, I did mention something once, years ago. We were sharing secrets at a sleepover, and I hinted at it without giving details. I never brought it up again, and she never asked. I didn't think she even remembered. Zach's expression darkened. "She's manipulative and dangerous, Lily. You need to cut her off completely." I knew he was right, but it wasn't that simple. "I'm paying her tuition. I can't just stop." "Actually, you can. Your parents are paying her tuition because you asked them to. You can ask them to stop." He had a point. I grabbed my phone to call my parents, but there were already 27 missed calls and 15 text messages from Tasha. I didn't read them. Instead, I called my mom and explained the situation. She was horrified and immediately agreed to stop the payments. My dad got on the phone too and said they never really liked Tasha anyway, but had gone along with it because they trusted my judgment. I felt relieved after talking to my parents, but also nervous about Tasha's reaction. I decided to text her rather than call. "After what you said last night, I don't think we can be friends anymore. My parents will not be continuing to pay your tuition." Her response came immediately. "You're choosing a predator over me? Fine, but don't come crying to me when he shows his true colors. And good luck explaining to everyone at school why you're supporting a kitty fiddler." I showed the text to Zach, who looked more angry than I'd ever seen him. She's threatening to spread rumors about me? That's defamation. I could sue her. Let's just ignore her, I suggested. She'll move on to someone else eventually. But as the next few days showed, Tasha had no intention of moving on. I showed up to class on Monday morning feeling like absolute garbage. I'd barely slept all weekend, constantly checking my phone to see what new horrible thing Tasha might be saying about me or Zach. My eyes were puffy and sore, and the fluorescent lights of the university hallway seemed to pierce right through my skull. I walked into the lecture hall for my psychology class and immediately noticed people looking at me and whispering, "Great." Tasha had already started spreading rumors. I slid into a seat near the back, trying to be invisible. The blue plastic chair was uncomfortable, but at least I could hide behind the students in front of me. My friend Morgan sat down next to me, looking concerned. Her curly brown hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she smelled faintly of coffee. "Hey, you okay? There's some weird stuff going around about Zach," she whispered. I just nodded, not wanting to get into it right before class. The professor walked in and started the lecture, but I couldn't focus at all. The words about cognitive biases and heuristics floated past me without sinking in. My phone kept vibrating in my pocket. More texts from Tasha, probably. After class, Morgan pulled me aside in the hallway, her expression serious. "Look, I know it's probably not true, but Tasha's telling everyone that Zach is into underage girls and that you're enabling him. She's saying you shave all your body hair to look like a child for him." I felt my face burning with embarrassment and anger. The hallway suddenly felt too crowded, too warm. That's completely insane. Zach is normal and I shave because I just do. Most women shave. It has nothing to do with looking like a child. Morgan looked relieved. "That's what I figured. Tasha's always been a bit much, but this is next level crazy. Don't worry, most people aren't buying it." "Most people?" I repeated, feeling sick. The knot in my stomach tightened. Morgan looked uncomfortable, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. "Well, she's really convincing when she gets going. And she's telling people you're a victim who's been manipulated, so some people are concerned about you." I thanked Morgan for the heads up and headed to my next class, weaving through the crowded hallway. On the way, I finally checked my phone. 15 new texts from Tasha, each one more unhinged than the last. The final one made my blood run cold. "I'm going to your parents' house tonight to tell them everything about Zach. They deserve to know what kind of monster their daughter is dating." I immediately called my mom, ducking into a quiet corner by the water fountain. She picked up on the second ring. "Mom, Tasha might try to come over tonight. Please don't let her in. She's saying horrible things about Zach and me." My mom sounded confused. "What kind of things, honey?" I couldn't bring myself to repeat the accusations. The thought of saying those words to my mother made me cringe. "Just really bad stuff. None of it's true. She's angry because we stopped paying her tuition. Don't worry, we won't let her in," my mom assured me. "Your father never liked her anyway. He always said there was something off about her." I felt a little better after talking to my mom, but my relief was short-lived. When I walked into the campus coffee shop for lunch, the smell of espresso and baked goods usually comforting, I spotted Tasha sitting with a group of our mutual friends. Her long blonde hair was perfectly styled as always, but there was something wild in her eyes that I could see even from the doorway. As soon as she saw me, she stood up and pointed. "There she is! The enabler!" she shouted, loud enough for the entire coffee shop to hear. The chatter died down instantly. Everyone turned to stare at me. I froze, not knowing what to do, feeling like a deer caught in headlights. One of our friends, Alex, looked embarrassed and tried to pull Tasha back down into her seat. Her cheeks were flushed with secondhand embarrassment. "Tasha, come on, this isn't the place." But Tasha was just getting started. She shook off Alex's hand, her voice rising even louder. "You all need to know what kind of person Lily really is. She's dating a predator who likes her because she looks like a child." I couldn't take it anymore. I turned around and ran out of the coffee shop, tears streaming down my face. The cool autumn air hit my hot cheeks as I pushed through the door. I didn't stop running until I reached Zach's apartment, my lungs burning and legs aching. He wasn't home, so I just sat outside his door, trying to calm down. The concrete step was cold through my jeans, but I barely noticed. About 20 minutes later, Zach showed up, looking worried. His dark hair was windswept, and he was slightly out of breath, as if he'd rushed over. "Lily? What happened? I got your texts but couldn't respond during my exam." I hadn't even realized I'd texted him. I checked my phone and saw that I'd sent a jumbled message about Tasha and the coffee shop. I explained what had happened, and Zach's face darkened with anger. His normally warm brown eyes hardened. "This has gone too far," he said, unlocking his door and ushering me inside. The familiar smell of his apartment, a mix of laundry detergent and the sandalwood candle I'd given him, was instantly calming. "She's actively trying to ruin our lives now." I collapsed onto his couch, feeling completely drained. The soft blue fabric enveloped me as I sank down. What are we supposed to do? If we fight back, it just makes us look guilty. Zach sat down next to me and put his arm around my shoulders. His touch was warm and reassuring. "We need to document everything she's doing. Save all the texts, record any interactions if possible. If she keeps this up, we might need to get a restraining order." The thought of things escalating to that level made me feel suck, but I nodded. Zach was right. This wasn't just Tasha being Tasha anymore. This was harassment. For the next week, I tried to keep my head down and avoid Tasha as much as possible. It wasn't easy. She seemed to be everywhere, always ready with a new accusation or insult. She'd wait outside my classes, follow me to the library, and even showed up at the restaurant where I worked part-time. The constant vigilance was exhausting. I found myself scanning every room I entered, my heart rate spiking whenever I saw someone with blonde hair. My boss, Thomas, had to ask her to leave after she started yelling about predator enablers in the middle of the dinner rush. The clatter of silverware and murmur of conversation had stopped completely as all eyes turned to our confrontation. I was mortified, but Thomas was surprisingly understanding. "Look, I don't know what's going on between you two," he said after Tasha had left, his salt and pepper beard moving as he spoke. "But if she comes back and causes trouble again, I'm calling the police." I thanked him and went back to work, feeling slightly better knowing that at least some people were on my side. My hands trembled slightly as I carried plates to my tables, but I managed to make it through the rest of my shift. The next day, I was walking to class when I spotted Tasha talking to a campus security officer. She was gesturing wildly and pointing in my direction. Her face was animated, eyes wide, as she seemed to be telling a dramatic story. The officer looked skeptical but was taking notes. I quickened my pace, not wanting to get involved in whatever new drama Tasha was creating. Later that day, I got a call from the campus security office asking me to come in for a meeting. My heart sank. What had Tasha told them? The fear of being officially accused of something was overwhelming. I called Zach immediately, and he offered to come with me for support. We went to the security office together, both of us nervous wrecks. The office was small and sterile, with motivational posters on the walls that felt jarringly out of place given my anxiety. The officer who met with us, Officer Rodriguez, was professional, but clearly uncomfortable. His uniform was crisp, but his expression was pained. Ms. Chen, we received a report from another student expressing concern about your relationship with Mr. Evans here. Normally, we wouldn't get involved in personal matters, but the allegations were serious enough that we felt we needed to follow up. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. Let me guess. Tasha Williams made the report? Officer Rodriguez nodded. I can't confirm the identity of the reporting party, but the allegations involve claims that Mr. Evans is inappropriately interested in minors, and that your relationship has concerning elements. Zach spoke up, his voice steady despite the absurdity of the situation. I could feel the tension in his body next to mine. Officer, these allegations are completely false. Tasha Williams has been harassing both of us for weeks because Lily stopped paying her tuition. We have documentation of her behavior if you'd like to see it. I pulled out my phone and showed Officer Rodriguez some of the texts Tasha had sent me. His eyebrows rose as he scrolled through them, his professional demeanor slipping slightly as he read the increasingly unhinged messages. I see, he said finally. This appears to be a personal dispute rather than a legitimate safety concern. I'll make a note in the report, but no further action will be taken at this time. We thanked him and left, both feeling relieved but also violated. The fact that we'd had to defend ourselves against such disgusting accusations was infuriating. This has to stop, I said as we walked back to Zach's apartment. The autumn leaves crunched under our feet, the sound oddly satisfying given my anger. She's trying to ruin our lives. Zach nodded grimly. I think it's time to consider that restraining order. The next day, we went to the county courthouse to get information about filing for a restraining order. The building was imposing, all marble and echoing hallways. The clerk gave us the forms and explained the process. We would need to document Tasha's harassment and show that it was causing us significant distress. Then a judge would decide whether to grant the order. As we were leaving the courthouse, I spotted a familiar figure across the street. Tasha was watching us, her expression unreadable from this distance. She was wearing a red coat that stood out vividly against the gray buildings. When she saw that I'd noticed her, she didn't run away or pretend she wasn't spying. Instead, she smiled and waved, like we were old friends who had just happened to run into each other. The gesture sent chills down my spine. There was something deeply wrong with her, and it was becoming clearer by the day. That night, I got a call from my mom. She sounded upset. Lily, Tasha came by the house today. Your father told her to leave, but she refused. She started screaming about Zach being a predator and you being in danger. We had to threaten to call the police before she would leave. I felt a surge of panic. Are you and Dad okay? Did she do anything? We're fine, just shaken up. But honey, she left something in our mailbox after she left. It's disturbing. My mom explained that Tasha had left a manila envelope containing printed screenshots of conversations that were supposedly between Zach and underage girls. The conversations were graphic and disturbing. Mom, those are fake, I said immediately, my voice rising with urgency. Zach would never say those things. Tasha must have created them somehow. My mom sounded relieved. That's what your father and I thought. They didn't sound like the Zach we've met. But Lily, this girl is dangerous. You need to be careful. After hanging up with my mom, I called Zach and told him about the fake screenshots. He was horrified. She's trying to frame me, he said, his voice shaking with anger. This goes beyond harassment. This is criminal. We decided to go to the police the next day to report Tasha's escalating behavior. But before we could, things got even worse. I woke up to a flood of notifications on my phone. Someone had created a fake Instagram account in my name with a profile picture of me and a bio that read, I support predators because I am one. DM for child content. I felt physically sick as I scrolled through the account. There were several posts, all with captions making it seem like I was involved in horrible activities. Most of the posts were just random photos from my real Instagram, but with disturbing captions added. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I immediately reported the account and then called Zach, sobbing. He came over right away, and we spent the morning contacting Instagram, trying to get the fake account taken down. It took hours, but finally, the account disappeared. Just as we were starting to feel a tiny bit better, my phone rang. It was my boss, Thomas. Lily, I hate to do this over the phone, but I need to let you go, he said, sounding genuinely regretful. We've received dozens of calls today from people claiming you're involved in, well, some very serious and illegal activities. I know it's probably not true, but the restaurant can't handle this kind of controversy. I was too stunned to argue. After hanging up, I told Zach what had happened. His face hardened with resolve. That's it. We're going to the police right now. At the police station, we spoke with a detective named Casey Williams, no relation to Tasha, thankfully. She was a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. We showed her all the evidence we had, the texts, the fake Instagram account, the fabricated screenshots, and explained about the harassment at school and my job. Detective Williams took it all seriously. This is definitely harassment, possibly stalking, and the fake screenshots and social media account could constitute defamation and identity theft. We'll need to investigate further, but you've got enough here to file for that restraining order. We left the police station feeling slightly better. At least someone in authority was taking us seriously now. The next day, we filed the paperwork for a temporary restraining order. The judge granted it based on the evidence we provided, which meant Tasha would have to stay at least 100 yards away from both of us until the hearing for a permanent order. When the sheriff served Tasha with the order, she apparently had a complete meltdown. According to the report, she screamed that we were trying to silence her because she knew the truth about us. For a few days, things were quiet. The restraining order seemed to be working. I was still dealing with whispers and stares on campus, but at least Tasha wasn't actively harassing me anymore. Then one evening, I came home to find my apartment door slightly ajar. My heart pounding, I called Zach and then the police. Zach arrived first, and we waited outside until 2 officers showed up. They cleared the apartment and confirmed that someone had broken in. My laptop was missing, and my bedroom had been ransacked. Clothes were thrown everywhere, and someone had written "enabler" in lipstick on my mirror. The bright red letters were smeared and angry looking against the glass. There was no doubt in my mind who had done it. The officers took a report and collected evidence, including fingerprints. They advised me to stay somewhere else for the night, so I went to Zach's place. The next morning, Detective Williams called to inform me that they had found Tasha's fingerprints in my apartment. They were going to arrest her for breaking and entering, theft, vandalism, and violating the restraining order. I felt a mix of relief and anxiety. On one hand, Tasha would finally face consequences for her actions. On the other hand, I worried that this would only make her more determined to expose us. My fears were confirmed when, later that day, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. It was Tasha, writing from someone else's account. "You think you've won, but you haven't. I have Lily's laptop now, and I'm going to find all the evidence I need to prove what you two really are. By the time I'm done, everyone will know the truth." I forwarded the email to Detective Williams, who assured me they were doing everything they could to locate Tasha. She had apparently not returned to her apartment after being released on bail. For the next few days, I jumped at every sound and constantly looked over my shoulder. Zach insisted on staying with me at all times, even walking me to and from classes. We were both exhausted and stressed, but at least we had each other. Then, about a week after the break-in, I received another email from Tasha. "I found nothing on your laptop, no evidence, but that doesn't mean you're innocent. It just means you're careful. Meet me at the old boathouse by the lake tomorrow at 7 p.m. if you want your laptop back. Come alone, or I'll destroy it." I showed the email to Zach, who immediately said, "You're not going. It's too dangerous." I knew he was right, but I also needed my laptop back. It had all my coursework and personal files on it. What if we tell Detective Williams? Maybe the police could be there, hiding. Zach didn't like the idea, but he agreed it was better than me going alone or not going at all. We contacted Detective Williams, who said she would arrange for officers to be positioned around the boathouse, out of sight. The next evening, I arrived at the boathouse at exactly 7 p.m. It was already getting dark, and the old wooden structure looked eerie in the fading light. The lake was still, reflecting the darkening sky like a mirror. I took a deep breath and walked inside. Tasha was sitting on a bench, my laptop on her lap. She looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled, and her eyes had a wild, unfocused look. The confident, put-together girl I had known was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. "You came," she said, sounding almost surprised. "I wasn't sure you would." "I just want my laptop back, Tasha," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Then I'll leave, and we never have to see each other again." She laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that echoed in the empty boathouse. "It's not that simple, Lily. You chose him over me. After everything I've done for you." I was confused. "What have you done for me? I'm the one who was paying your tuition." "I've protected you," she shouted, suddenly angry. Her voice bounced off the wooden walls. "I've always protected you from men like Zach, men who only want one thing, men who see your vulnerability and exploit it." I took a step back, startled by her outburst. "Zach isn't like that. He's a good person who cares about me." Tasha's expression darkened. "That's what they all say. That's what my father said about my uncle, right before he started coming into my room at night." Suddenly, a lot of things about Tasha made more sense. Her extreme reactions to men, her obsession with predators, her need to protect me. She had been projecting her own trauma onto everyone around her. "Tasha, I'm sorry that happened to you," I said gently, "but Zach isn't your uncle, and I'm not you." For a moment, I thought I was getting through to her. Her expression softened slightly, and she looked down at the laptop. Then, without warning, she stood up and hurled it against the wall. It shattered, pieces of plastic and metal flying everywhere. The crash was deafening in the quiet boathouse. "If I can't make you see the truth, then no one can have you," she screamed, lunging toward me with her hands outstretched. Before she could reach me, the boathouse door burst open, and Detective Williams rushed in, followed by 2 uniformed officers. They quickly restrained Tasha, who was still screaming incoherently about protecting me and exposing Zach. As they led her away, Detective Williams explained that they had been watching and listening the whole time. They had intervened as soon as Tasha became violent. "She needs help," I said, watching as they put her in the back of a police car. The red and blue lights flashed across the lake, creating an eerie, surreal scene. "Serious psychological help," Detective Williams nodded. "Based on what we heard tonight and her previous behavior, the judge will likely order a psychological evaluation. She'll get the help she needs." I walked back to where Zach was waiting, just beyond the police perimeter. He wrapped me in a tight hug, and I finally let myself cry. For the friendship I had lost, for the trauma Tasha had clearly experienced, and for the weeks of hell she had put us through. As we stood there by the lake, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. It was over, but the scars would remain for a long time to come. I walked back to Zach's car, my legs feeling like jelly. The gravel crunched under my feet as I tried to process everything that had just happened. Zach opened the passenger door for me, and I practically collapsed into the seat. My hands were still shaking, and I could feel tears threatening to spill over again. "You okay?" Zach asked, starting the car. The engine hummed to life, a comforting normal sound after all the craziness. I nodded, not trusting my voice. We drove in silence for a while, the streetlights casting weird shadows across the dashboard. I kept replaying Tasha's words in my head. All this time, she'd been projecting her own trauma onto everyone around her. It didn't excuse what she did, but it made it make more sense. "What happens now?" I finally asked as we pulled into Zach's apartment complex. The familiar sight of the brick building was weirdly comforting. Detective Williams said they're charging her with breaking and entering, destruction of property, violating the restraining order, and attempted assault. Zach replied, parking the car. "With her history and what happened tonight, she'll probably be held for psychiatric evaluation." We went inside, and I immediately flopped onto his couch, physically and emotionally drained. Zach made us both some tea, which was his go-to comfort thing. The warm mug felt good in my hands, grounding me back to reality. I lost all my coursework, I said suddenly, remembering my shattered laptop. All my essays, my thesis notes, everything. We'll figure it out, Zach assured me. Your professors will understand once they know what happened. I nodded, sipping my tea. It was weird, but despite everything, I felt a tiny bit sorry for Tasha. Not enough to forgive her, but enough to hope she'd get the help she obviously needed. The next morning, I woke up to my phone ringing. It was Detective Williams calling to update me. She told me Tasha had been taken to the psychiatric ward of the local hospital for evaluation. The doctors had placed her on a 72-hour hold, which could be extended if necessary. What about school? I asked, rubbing sleep from my eyes. Will I still have to see her there? The university has been informed of the situation, Detective Williams explained. They're implementing their own no-contact order, and from what I understand, they're considering disciplinary action against Ms. Williams for harassment. That was a relief. I thanked her and hung up, then filled Zach in on the conversation. He was in the kitchen making breakfast, the smell of bacon filling the apartment. So she's getting help, and you're protected at school, he summarized, flipping a pancake. That's good news. I nodded, accepting the plate he handed me. I still need to deal with my professors about all my lost work, though. After breakfast, I emailed all my professors explaining the situation. Most of them responded quickly with surprising understanding. My psychology professor even offered to give me an extension on all my assignments for the rest of the semester. My English professor said she still had copies of my earlier drafts that she could send me. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. The next few days were weirdly quiet. No drama, no Tasha, no harassment, just normal college life. I kept expecting something to happen, jumping whenever my phone buzzed or someone knocked on the door. Zach noticed and tried to help me relax, but it was hard to shake the feeling that this wasn't really over. A week after the boathouse incident, I got another call from Detective Williams. My heart immediately started racing, thinking Tasha had done something else. Ms. Chen, I wanted to let you know that Ms. Williams will be transferred to a long-term psychiatric facility tomorrow, she said. The doctors have diagnosed her with several conditions that require intensive treatment. She'll likely be there for at least a few months. I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Will she get better? With proper treatment, there's a good chance she'll learn to manage her conditions, Detective Williams replied, but recovery takes time. After hanging up, I sat on my bed for a long time, just thinking. Tasha had been my friend for years. Despite all her quirks and outbursts, I genuinely cared about her. And now she was in a psychiatric facility, and I was partly responsible for putting her there. It was the right thing to do, but it still felt weird. Zach came over that evening with takeout from my favorite Thai place. The smell of pad Thai and green curry filled my tiny apartment as we set up dinner on my coffee table. I told him about Tasha's transfer to the psychiatric facility. That's good, he said, opening containers. She needs serious help, and now she'll get it. I nodded, picking at my food. I know, it's just weird to think about. Like, a month ago we were friends, and now she's in a mental hospital and I have a restraining order against her. Zach reached over and squeezed my hand. You did everything you could for her, Lily. You paid her tuition. You put up with her behavior for years. This isn't your fault. I knew he was right, but it was still hard to accept. We ate in comfortable silence for a while, the TV playing some random cooking show in the background. The next day, I decided to go see my parents. I hadn't visited them since all this started, and I needed some family time. Their house was about an hour from campus, a cozy suburban place with a big backyard. As soon as I walked in, my mom wrapped me in a hug that smelled like her perfume and home-cooked food. We've been so worried, she said, leading me to the kitchen. My dad was there making coffee. He gave me a side hug, his familiar aftershave comforting. How are you holding up, kiddo? He asked, pouring me a cup. I shrugged, sitting at the kitchen island. Better, I guess. Tasha's getting help now, so that's good. My parents exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. My mom sat next to me, her face serious. Lily, there's something we need to tell you, she said. After Tasha left those fake screenshots here, your father and I were worried about what else she might do. So we contacted her parents. I nearly choked on my coffee. You what? Why? We thought they should know what was happening, my dad explained. They were shocked, but not entirely surprised. Apparently Tasha has had psychological issues since childhood. They told us some things that explained a lot about her behavior. My mom nodded. They said Tasha was molested by her uncle when she was young. He went to prison for it, but Tasha never received proper therapy. They tried, but she refused to talk about it. As she got older, she became increasingly paranoid about men and predators. This confirmed what Tasha had said at the boathouse. I felt a pang of sympathy for her, despite everything she'd put me through. There's more, my dad continued. After we told them about the fake screenshots and the things she was saying about Zach, they admitted that Tasha has done this before. In elevated school, she accused a teacher of inappropriate behavior. There was an investigation, but they found no evidence. The teacher ended up moving to another district because of the rumors. I sat back, processing this information. So this is like a pattern for her? My parents nodded. My mom reached for my hand. Her parents feel terrible about everything she's done to you. They want to help however they can. What does that mean? I asked, confused. For starters, they're going to replace your laptop, my dad said. They insisted. And they're covering all of Tasha's treatment costs, so you don't have to worry about her tuition anymore. I didn't know how to feel about this. On one hand, it was nice of them to replace my laptop. On the other hand, it felt weird accepting anything from Tasha's family after everything that had happened. You don't have to decide right now, my mom said, seeing my hesitation. Just think about it. I spent the rest of the day with my parents, trying to focus on normal family stuff instead of the Tasha situation. We watched a movie, had dinner, and for a few hours, I almost forgot about everything that had happened. When I got back to my apartment that night, there was a package waiting for me. It was a brand new laptop, way nicer than my old one, with a note from Tasha's parents apologizing for their daughter's actions. I set it up on my desk, feeling conflicted, but grateful. Over the next few weeks, life slowly returned to normal. The rumors at school gradually died down as people found new drama to focus on. My professors were understanding about my missing assignments, and I was able to catch up without too much stress. Zach and I were doing great, spending most of our free time together. 1 month after the boathouse incident, I received a letter from the psychiatric facility where Tasha was staying. My first instinct was to throw it away unopened, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a handwritten note from Tasha. Lily, I'm writing this as part of my therapy. I'm supposed to make amends to people I've hurt. I know saying sorry isn't enough for what I did to you and Zach. I was wrong. The doctors here say I have several conditions that affected my thinking and behavior. I'm on medication now and doing intensive therapy. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I understand now how wrong I was. Tasha. I showed the letter to Zach when he came over that evening. He read it carefully, his expression thoughtful. Do you think she means it? He asked, handing it back to me. I shrugged. Maybe. The doctors wouldn't have let her send it if they thought she was still delusional, but it doesn't really change anything. No, it doesn't, Zach agreed, but it's good that she's getting help. I folded the letter and put it away. I had no intention of responding or renewing contact with Tasha. Some bridges can't be rebuilt, and that was okay. A week later, I ran into Alex, one of our mutual friends, at the campus coffee shop. She waved me over to her table, looking slightly awkward. Hey, I just wanted to say I'm sorry about everything that happened with Tasha, she said as I sat down. We all should have seen how unhinged she was getting. I shrugged, stirring my coffee. It's not your fault. She was good at hiding it when she wanted to. Alex nodded. Some of us visited her at the facility last weekend. She seems different, calmer. She told us she's been diagnosed with PTSD, borderline personality disorder, and some kind of delusional disorder. She's on a bunch of medications now. That's good, I said, meaning it. Despite everything, I didn't wish Tasha ill. I just wanted her to get better and stay far away from me and Zach. She asked about you. Alex continued, looking uncomfortable. I told her you were doing fine and that you and Zach were still together. She just nodded and changed the subject. I appreciated that Alex hadn't given Tasha any specific information about me. The last thing I needed was for her to fixate on me again, even from inside a psychiatric facility. As the semester came to an end, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened. The whole experience with Tasha had been terrifying and exhausting, but in a weird way, it had also made me stronger. I'd stood up for myself and Zach, faced my fears, and come out the other side. Zach and I celebrated the end of finals by going out to dinner at a nice restaurant downtown. As we were waiting for dessert, he reached across the table and took my hand. I'm really proud of you, you know, he said, his eyes warm. After everything that happened with Tasha, a lot of people would have fallen apart, but you didn't. I smiled, squeezing his hand. I had help. You, my parents, even Detective Williams. Still, he insisted, you're stronger than you give yourself credit for. Maybe he was right. A year ago, I probably would have let Tasha walk all over me, making excuses for her behavior and trying to keep the peace. But now I understood that some friendships, no matter how long they've lasted, aren't worth the damage they cause. As we left the restaurant, walking hand in hand under the stars, I felt genuinely happy for the first time in months. Tasha was getting the help she needed. I was free from her manipulation, and I had learned an important lesson about standing up for myself. Life wasn't perfect, but it was pretty damn good.